Salam and welcome back, everybody, to our podcast, Unapologetic, the Third Narrative.
Our original and authentic initiative in light of the war in Israel and Gaza.
A platform where we will share our identities, views, and experience from the ground. 8 months.
It has been 8 months.
Has been 8 fucking months.
And it's been a while since we recorded also.
Well, yeah, a lot has been happening. It's really difficult to record this while it's happening to you at the same time.
Yeah.
But I'm happy we're back.
I know. It's been a little too long, and I missed our people. Talk to our people.
Right, me too. Just some sanity in all of this chaos.
I agree.
So, we've been up. I know we haven't been on the podcast, but we've been up to a lot.
I know, and I think our people, our friends, our community, the third narrative, they deserve to know also what we've been up to, Amira.
Yeah.
So what have you been up to?
I'll keep the emotions for another day, but I've been working a lot. That's my coping mechanism. I've been traveling. I've been to Belfast, working on a project with a few other Palestinians and Israelis. I have been to Cyprus, also in a conference. And here.
Yep.
All around our home. What about you?
So while you've been traveling and leaving me behind here in the past couple trips that you had, I've been really trying to work on expanding the amount of lectures that I've been doing to talk about the third narrative.
But actually, our listeners don't know what kind of lectures you do.
So there are two things that I've been doing recently. One is a lecture that I've been doing for the past 5 years that talks about Arab citizens of Israel, who we are as a community, identity, Palestinian versus Israeli, our challenges, reality and opportunities, and the future ahead. So that's a lecture I've been giving for a long time now. And now, with the third narrative expanding, I'm trying to do it even more so, and to reach more audiences. And honestly, in the past, I used to even talk more with foreign audiences, incoming tourism. And now I'm like, no, I need to talk to the Jewish Israeli population. They're the ones that I need to talk to about all of these things. And I guess maybe that's also kind of like a spoiler to our audience in terms of, what we're going to talk about today also is one of the things that I'm going to be doing very soon is to speak at, there's the memory in the living room concept exists here in Israel.
Yeah.
That you bring in someone who's a Holocaust survivor, you come into somebody's living room at a house and they host a bunch of people and you listen to that person's story. You listen to what they have gone through in the Holocaust. People listen to it, ask questions at the end. It's a incredible opportunity, honestly, when you get to do that. And I got to do that for the first time ever this year on the International Holocaust Memorial. And now there's a new initiative to do that in a completely different way, to talk about Palestinian identity in Israel, what it's like to be a Palestinian in Israel. And actually, this whole project started because in the on Nakba Day, we have the Marches of Return, which is a very debated topic here in Israel. And one of the people who was in those marches, she was a teacher. She's a teacher in a Jewish school, also, interestingly. And her photo was caught, she was in the March of Return on Nakba Day. And it created a whole chaos around her and a lot of populism demanding her to be fired from the school, all of these things. So there's an initiative that it's by Palestinians and Jewish Israelis who are, taking the lead in helping us, hosting us in their living rooms to talk about this identity in Israel. So that's what I'm kind of putting a lot of the efforts on. And next week I'll be in Ireland, the first country to, in this way of recognizing Palestinian states. So it'll be very interesting.
That's right.
It's about to be very interesting. Yeah, it'll be with a group of Palestinians who are, coming from different views, political views on where should the future go to, and I'll bring the third narrative there as well. So that's what I'll be doing soon.
That is actually a great segue to announce something very special and big, which
Drum
is
roll.
we are going to devote more and more time into this podcast in order to grow it into something that's way, way bigger.
Right.
We believe not just in Unapologetic, the podcast, but in the third narrative, the movement, the community, which is a community of dialogue, of acceptance, not the one that we're used to, the one that avoids the elephant in the room. We put the elephant right front and center and we talk about it. And we don't have to agree. That's our biggest motto. We don't have to agree on the past because we are not going to. But the future, that's where we need to butt heads. That's where we need to agree on things, on how it is supposed to be. And that's exactly why we opened our Patreon, actually. We didn't say it at the first because we wanted to commit 100%, but our Patreon is there for people who want to give us a little push, that want to help us on this journey, to make our time more efficient, to also create, because we're doing also very interesting things in the Patreon. We meet with some people once a month. We talk about things. We answer some exclusive questions. So I'm honestly all in. I love what we're doing.
And I'm all in too. When you get all the messages, all the support and what people have been saying and writing to us. And I know we haven't responded to everything, and we're truly sorry that it's really difficult. It's thousands and thousands.
We can't see everything anyways. Instagram doesn't let you see everything.
And also it's thousands of messages, impossible. And I wish we're able to do it all, and we're going to try now when we have more time and we're dedicating more time to this initiative. But when you see people who are, feeling the comfort of having that kind of discussion with all the difficulties and all the challenges, that this is something that's helping people, that for me became the mantle that this is our role in all of this craziness that's happening, is to continue bring this voice of ours and to do it even more so than before, and to dedicate more time, more energy, more effort, to be more live on the street, on the ground, and to be there as much as possible. And, maybe not everybody from our audience knows, but, every episode that we've launched and had so far, we paid from our own pockets, we became poor. And people don't...
Not manifesting that. We are rich, and we will continue this project, and it will grow with us, and we'll grow with it.
But just the fact that we've, it's not like we've had this backing behind us, and now we're trying to get this Patreon to become rich or something.
I know, some people, because we say the third narratives, it feels like we are a big team. We are a big community. A lot of people believe in what we are doing, but it's Ibrahim and I, with a few very close volunteers of ours and people that are futuristically going to be part of the team as we form it. But it's us. When you see people responding to your messages, when you see people posting, editing the reels, that's all Ibrahim and I. That's it. That's why it's not like it's a media outlet that each and every time something happens, we are on it. It's we go through it, and then when we can post something, we do. When we can update on something, we do. And we hope to become more efficient. We aim and strive to be as out there as possible, as inclusive as possible, and we'll see where the journey takes us. We're riding the wave.
And maybe this is the time for a very special shout out to two of our best friends, and two people who've literally been dedicating so much time.
Hours and hours of effort.
It's not a joke. It's crazy how much, these people have been helping us, especially the first one, Evelyn. Wow, hats down. Without her, half of the things that we've done wouldn't have been happened.
We also learned a lot from her. That's
so much of her input, her charisma, her, the content, the willingness is incredible. The second one is Adham, with all his support, and as someone who's a very podcast listener, he's given us so many details and points, and you need to fix this, you can do that, this is great, this is less, and all of these things are helping us a lot. And now we have another friend, Majd, who's going to be helping us launch the third narrative more. So a lot of people are helping us. But yeah, it's, me and Amira are like, working on it.
Yeah. But these three people, especially the first two, Ev and Evelyn and Adam,
proper shout out when you start doing real things.
When you start doing your job. But they've been supporting us since day one, behind the scenes since day one.
And the one group that has supported us more than anything and made us realize that we need to do this is our listeners.
That's true. That's true. A lot of people ask us about, were you expecting this kind of audience to form? Were you expecting this kind of reaction? And mine was like, yeah, in the beginning, I was like, yeah, like we're speaking, like we're a voice of reason in the middle of all of this. And as it grows and how quickly it grows.
The magnitude.
Yeah, like I am so baffled by what we're doing because of our listeners.
For those who don't know, we're talking about 177,000 plays.
To date,
to all our episodes. We have 2 episodes. The first 2 have already reached 17,000 plays each. We have 6 episodes in over 10K each play. And to our top 5 countries, and if you guys are not in it, that means you
got some work to do.
Share it with more people in your country. But our number 1 country that we have listeners from is the US.
Yeah.
44% of our listeners come from the US. It's
crazy.
And after that, it's Israel with 14%. And then number 3, we have Canada with 10%. And then Australia with 8%. And last but not least, the top 5 is the UK with 5%.
So it's the English-speaking countries.
English-speaking countries, but we have at least 1 play in over 140 countries, Amira. Just so you know.
But wait, I'm curious. When the stats say Israel, do they include the occupied Palestinian territories?
No, there is Palestine alone, by the way. It's separate.
I mean, I understand. The topic is in English.
And yeah, it's...
And most of the people that listen to us from Israel are from the center, which is kind of like the tech
Tel
hub,
Aviv,
and it's international, and it's usually
international.
English. But I will say, from the looks of our social media, ever since we launched like a few episodes with the translation, with one in Arabic, we are bringing also a new kind of community, which makes the comment section very interesting. But yeah, we are very grateful for all of you, and we can't reach the 20th episode without saying it out loud. And we can't do this without you, and we're going to continue to do it with you. And since we're on the topic of the most recent content that we've been putting out, our last episode, the special episode that we launched, was something that we dived into without even like thinking, I think. It was a tough week that goes through each and every year, like regardless of the entire situation. War, not war, pre-October 7th, post-October 7th, it's always the week of Independence Day for Israel and Nakba Memorial Day for the Palestinians is always a really hard week.
Yeah, and then you have the Israeli Memorial Day a day before.
A day before.
And then you have Israeli independence, and day after you have the Palestinian
Nakba Day.
A lot of emotions in 3 days.
Yeah. And usually, I was even surprised by you, because where you line on the political spectrum is kind of it's very, very nuanced. Like, it's very accepting. It's very curious, very, like, you explore. And you're not afraid of a conversation, and you're not afraid to absorb others' conversation. But not this year. Last year, I remember you disappeared on that day. I was like, I wonder what Ibrahim, like, we just met. It's like, I wonder what he's going to do. And I kid you not, I did not. It was like dead silence. I heard nothing from Ibrahim. I was also, like, not out, because it's not, like, the day that you, like... I feel like it's the day that I feel mostly disconnected from even my best
one
of
or the
days.
Nakba one?
Independence.
On Independence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I disappear.
It's hard. It's tough. It's really tough. Even if I say my parents, I didn't grow up in a household. It was very traditional, very keeping Palestinian culture. But it's not like we didn't do anything for Nakba Remembrance Day. We didn't. It just passed by. We would do something at school, but it passed by in our household. But even for me, that day is really difficult, extremely difficult.
To be honest, I mean, in general, it's always been a weird day.
Yeah.
You know, like, and in general, just on this day, because, you know, for instance, I have a Jewish roommate who would be like, hey, let's, you know, I'm doing something with my family. Would you like to join? So, like, you know, that's sometimes very challenging thoughts to deal with and stuff like that. And yeah, usually I'm just by myself. You know, I live in a predominantly Jewish town and neighborhood, and so, you know, everything around me is like white and blue, and I'm not fully part of that. You know, it doesn't talk about me at all in terms of the flag or something like that. But even just I think because there still is an ongoing conflict, you can't look at the Israeli Independence Day and say, like, you know, it's a day to celebrate,
yeah,
or,
that doesn't mean
or
anything
that it doesn't
to
mean anything. Like the conflict's ongoing. Palestinian identity in Israel isn't still not recognized. It's something we're still talking about. So it's not like we actually have a day dedicated for memorial for our own history. But we do have the mutual, the joint Memorial Day.
Yeah.
That we've gone to together last year.
But it's also very controversial.
It is. We've gone to it last year together.
Yeah.
So
honestly, a lot of people go to it.
So these things I'd rather do, yeah. But then, like, on Independence Day, like, no, I'll just be home. I don't want to deal with anyone with all these emotions, because I know that my friends are really happy and celebrating, and for me, it's
even the closest of friends, that aren't even like very
political or nationalist or anything it's just a day of celebration, which I find it hard to be part of that celebration.
I went from doing nothing on those days, and like in East Jerusalem, you don't even feel it because it's East Jerusalem, it's your bubble. You don't see any Israeli flags unless you're going into nearing into West Jerusalem, unless you're in a settlement, But in East Jerusalem, like in my neighborhood, like you don't see that much presence, and it's a day off for people. And usually there's something at schools. Usually there's something at like cultural centers. There's not a lot of cultural centers, unfortunately, but there's like 2, I think, and usually they do have something, either a play or they play like a musician, poetry, something like that. And the past few years, because I have started to immerse myself into Israeli society and to start having Israeli friends and Jewish friends, I'm always baffled by the amount of, I don't know if it's ignorance, naivety, lack of consideration, or lack of knowledge, or lack of willingness to know and understand. But like I remember last year, I went to a Nakba march, and like, don't get me wrong, I also don't see myself in these marches. Like,
We can talk about them in a second. What do they mean?
But I wanted to go because I couldn't do anything else in that day, and all of my friends were doing like independent stuff. And I remember, like, I went to that, and I was texting with a friend of mine, and after I was done, like, I had no reception because it's like filled with kufiyas and Palestinian flags. Usually, it's in a secluded area, either in a very predominantly Arab town or a secluded area. So I didn't have reception, and he was like texting me and asking me if I was okay, and then I told him, no, I'm done. I just didn't have reception. And what he asked me was, "Did you have fun?"
Wow.
We interrupt this episode to express our heartfelt gratitude to our supporters and our Patreon members. Without you, we wouldn't be where we are today. So this is a reminder that if you join our Patreon community, you will have access to exclusive content, and you will be the first to know when we have something going on in your city. So that is your reminder to join the Patreon, and you can do it with the link in our description. Thank you so much for your support. We appreciate it a lot. And then I was like, it was heartbreaking. And then he started apologizing. He was like, no, that didn't mean it. I didn't, Hannah. Wow. But he's in a fun zone. It's Independence Day. No, even though Nakba Remembrance Day is on the
Day
15th,
after.
not the 14th, because it's a national holiday and everyone's off, usually anything that's done for Palestine and Nakba is on the same day because it's an off day. They can organize things on that day.
Usually Nakba
Yeah.
marches are on the 14th and not
They're
on
not
the
supposed to
15th.
be on the same day, but everyone's working.
It's not like you get. It's
Yeah.
not like the state gives us a day off to have those on a separate day, you know. And I actually had that question from someone. It's like, why do the people do it on the same day as Independence Day? Like, can't you do it on a different? I'm like, sure,
Give us a
give
day.
us a day.
We'll do it in a completely different month. Give us a day.
That's not the argument. That's not a problem. But we don't have a day. The people do it on the 14th because there's no day. And like you said, it's a day off because it's Independence Day anyways, and most people are off from their work. And the whole issue of the marches, these marches of return, the biggest issue about them, and this again goes back to the issue of Sabrin, the teacher, who was attacked for joining, is that it literally means different thing to different people.
Yeah.
And that's something that not everybody understands, and it goes back again to the lack of understanding that stems from no proper education and no systematic education in Israel about these things, because there's no recognition that these things are, part of the history. It's not taught in schools. The history is not, so everything becomes controversial. So the march can be one thing for me, and something else for you, and something entirely completely different somebody else.
Whether Palestinian or Israeli.
Yeah. Like, no, but I'm saying for the Palestinians, for the Israeli to understand why is someone there, is that it's not one view of, you're there just to say, I want this village to now return and be back to Palestine. For some people, it's memory.
It's to mourn.
It's to mourn. It's a memorial day. And those marches are just to remember the marches that our grandparents did. We talked to 3 women. They all talked about, everybody had to walk on foot everywhere when they escaped. So it's part of it. And people need to understand that that's part of our, effort to keep our own history, because it's not kept. If we don't do it, nobody else will.
Yeah. So what is it that we did? We released this special episode, and because of time and whatever, we just released it and wanted to see what would happen, how people would react. And it's a mixed bag, the reactions. It's a really mixed bag. A lot of anger that is, I think, triggered because people think that it's a straight attack. And like you said, it means different things for different people. But so when you go ahead and release an entire episode about the Nakba, and not even us talking, but people that went through it, it feels like people kind of feel like, look at what you did. This is what you did to us. That's not what we intended to do. But come on, it is what it is. Really, it is what it is.
To recognize that these things happen.
Yeah. We're not saying that. We just want, the same way we amplify some Jewish voices, like we had Ashager, we had a lot of minorities within Israel, and soon, inshallah, within Palestine also. This is also a story. This is also a story that maybe some of our listeners, we said the majority of our listeners are from the States, maybe haven't had the opportunity, not because they don't want to, but because they haven't had the opportunity to actually listen to these stories. So we went out of our way to go with equipment we've never used in our entire life, with the help actually of Evelyn and Adham.
Oh wow, yeah.
Adham
drove us around.
Was our chauffeur for the day, and Evelyn was the equipment person
on everything.
On everything. And these 3 episodes we did in one day. It was fucking crazy.
Yep.
Never again we're doing that.
Never again.
Not.
We've gone from one house to the next. It was
no break.
No break. I think the biggest issue that I have, with these kind of responses about the episode in general, it shows some kind of attitude towards how reconciliation should be done. Mm-hmm. Because for us, the whole idea is recognition and reconciliation between the two peoples. Mm-hmm. And to learn that, hey, this side has suffered through 1, 2, 3. Hey, this side has suffered through 1, 2, 3. This is our history. This is this history. Let's reconcile, and let's accept that these things happen to both sides. And let's then open a new book, a fresh leaf forward. But doing it by you telling me I need to forget my own past so I can move with you to the future, that's the biggest problem. Is if you're talking about the Palestinian past, it puts you in a negative way to some, because you shouldn't talk about these things. No, it's the same element of calling you Arab Israeli, and you're not part of them. Don't bring that up. You're here. You're with us. That's it. It's the future. And
look at what we've given you. Look at how we've been treating you as a minority.
And don't look at the past. It's about the future, and delegitimizing. It's my grandma's story. The second person in the episode is my grandma. Like, it's not. And the biggest thing that frustrates me with that point is my question to those people: where would the Jewish people be if they would forget their past?
It's hypocritical.
And they let go of their past. The whole concept of the Jewish people is that the
establishment of the state
is that they continue the ways of the past. Is that they stick to traditions. You have Hanukkah, Passover. These are like things about suffering that happened over 1,000 years ago. Hanukkah 1,000 plus, Passover 2,000, 3,000 plus, 2,000 plus. You're talking about like very, very ancient things, and you still preserve them till today. You don't let go of your own past. So why are you telling me to let go of mine? That's what pisses me off the most. And that's why even more so we need to bring these stories and talk about Nakba stories. Because Nakba stories is not just a political thing. That's what I think they also miss out on.
Yeah.
It's not a political story only. It's a life story.
Yeah.
My grandpa's story from 48 has nothing to do with the Jewish people, for instance, from my dad's side. Like, I know I talk a lot about my grandma's side. And by the way, the importance of recognizing these stories, because otherwise we won't know the real thing.
Yeah.
I always mixed up between Ramallah and Bethlehem. I was sure my grandma was born in Ramallah, and then they moved to Bethlehem. And it was actually the other way around. So yeah, we have to record these stories. And
what's the story that you wanted to say about your grandpa?
And for my grandpa, from my dad's side, he was born in Nazareth.
Yeah.
And so they had a lot of cattle, a lot of camels, donkeys, things like that, because they were the dairy providers to the neighborhood. My great grandmother, she used to make milk and yogurt and all of these things out of the cattle. And my grandpa used to, take the cattle to the hills to feed them. That was his job at the house. And in 48, when a lot of the smaller communities around Nazareth, like Safuri, today Tzipori, they were all expelled, and people were and people escaped to Nazareth and other places, and people fled and arrived to Nazareth because it was a bigger city, a haven. But some people who arrived there, for them, it was a stop in the way to escape towards Jordan. So a lot of people came to my grandparents' house asking to be taken to Jordan, because there were no cars back then in our community.
Okay.
Cars was not a thing. I know for Americans and in the West, we're talking about Industrial Revolution. People need to understand, when we were under the Ottoman Empire here, we were for 400 years in the same thing. There was no technological advancement under the Ottomans. That's why there were no cars here, because it was easier for the Ottomans to control the people when they have no technology. So there was no cars. So people came to my grandparents because they have cattle, and they asked, "Can you take us to Jordan?" And my grandpa told me that story, that his mom, my great-grandmother, called him and said she's told them, "Yeah, no problem. Salim, my grandpa, is the eldest one in the family. He'll take you. He's 14.
Okay.
From Nazareth to Jordan, alone, taking a family, on a camel and a couple of donkeys." And he would tell me, and every time I asked him the story, he would emphasize how she asked to be paid in advance. Do you know why?
Because she didn't know if he would come back?
Yeah. Yeah. She didn't know if he'll come back. And for him, his whole 48 story is about his dynamic with his mother.
Wow.
It has nothing to do with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
It's his mommy issues?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's his mom sending him to a war zone and wanting to be paid. That was the thing that she focused on, is that she can get paid. And he was sent to a war zone. And he did the trip a few times, by the way. And he could have gotten...
Did he ever get a cut?
I don't think he did. Poor bloke. May he rest in peace. But he could have also got stuck in Jordan.
It's true.
You know, there was massive risk.
Yeah, would have become a Palestinian refugee in Jordan.
As a 14-year-old alone, you know, like some people left with their family and stuff. He was by himself. And he would drop a family in Jordan and come back alone on cattle.
Wow.
So the story of 48
easily.
And the story of 48 is not just a political story, a war story between the two sides, because war and conflict creates internal stories like that one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of our history. And we need to learn about what happened to us. But if it's silenced, it's not going to happen.
You know, something that resonated with me personally, because we got into the personal dynamics and family, is exactly that, how much division and pain, the lack of recognition, and how the trajectory of history into the present has made our people go through. And when I say our people, I mean everyone here. And that separation of that specific day, of even when people that work together and are friends and have like eat together and go party together, separate during this day and just don't, like no association. So that's something that resonated with me. And something else that's personal is, like I said, my family never talked to me about this. They never, they went through a lot. And because they went through a lot,
they don't talk.
They were traumatized.
Yeah.
I have family members that were in prison. I have family members, like a lot of shit. And they didn't want us to go through that. So it's fascinating to me, the two extremes of either literally giving it, like inheriting your trauma to your children to a point where they become as nationalistic as you, maybe sometimes even more, or they become the complete opposite, where they don't know their history and they have to go through a journey of actually understanding what's right, what's wrong, and to get to a conclusion of who the fuck they are. So I was sitting there and I felt so disconnected. Like in my mind, I was like, I can't relate to this. Like I'm looking in my memory of something that like similar that I've heard, or something from my own family, because it was your grandma. So I was thinking, it was like my grandpa on my mom's side worked with a municipality in Jerusalem. He had Israeli citizenship. It was just very weird for me, like to sit there and listen and just to absorb, and to see a lot of hate and anger in their voice and sadness in their eyes. It was certainly an experience, I would say. Like for me, I'm very happy we did it, even though we keep on saying, I wish we did something different. But like, I'm really happy that we went through that experience.
Was it fun?
No. Not literally as a journey.
As you were asked, you know.
And there's something that you kept on telling me about what the lady from
Shvamer
kept saying, the lady in white. Miriam.
Yeah.
kept on telling you على الله لو جيتوا من قبل.
Yeah.
Which means, wow, I wish you came earlier. You kept on talking about it.
Yeah, that maybe is the one thing that resonated with me, one of the most that resonated with me in that what we did. How, you know, so last year, was it 2 years ago? I don't remember anymore. I think it was last year.
Last year.
Last year I had an idea because I saw it, to be honest. The same project was done by Jewish people in Israel. It was a commercial that I saw a few years back on TV. It was calling for Mizrahi Jews, saying, hey, like the story of the Mizrahis are not told. You know, the focus is on the Holocaust, the way that you can contribute is take your phone, record your grandparents talk about their story from the Arab countries and send it to us so we can save it in an archive. I thought it was a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, so that's like, we should do this something similar. At least I want to encourage people to take out their goddamn phones that they have all day, at least on, and it's because of something that you said also. We do not have, and that's part of the weakness of the Palestinian peoplehood, because it's a new peoplehood. It needs, and it immediately went to a conflict. So there was no establishment of, these norms, these new norms that, would include Memory Day. We sit down, we talk about it, and we, and we have a tradition of it, of how to handle Memorial Day. So we don't have that. And people don't record their grandparents, and that generation is disappearing. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'm going to record my grandma, and I want people to push people to do the same. Unfortunately, it wasn't a great success. I was also like, like no one knew who I am, and I'm just coming out of this random video with 100 followers on Instagram. No one gives a shit about what I'm trying to say.
And also, your grandma didn't want to be public about the specifics of the story, which is also interesting. Why she changed her mind this year,
October 7th, and everything that's been happening in Gaza. Now she's like, it's really is a situation of now or never, and the reality needs to be changed. So she was willing to share the actual story. And so that's why, again, I was really wanted to do something around that, and to push again our own people. Record your stories, record your grandparents, because otherwise we're not going to have those stories in the future, and we won't have anyone else to blame. We can talk about the state as much as we want. Oh, they didn't put allocate to it budget, didn't recognize it. Sure, where's our role in preserving our own stories? And that's what I've been trying to do. And hopefully next year we'll do it again.
Yeah, with different stories.
Yeah, of course.
In a different kind of dynamic.
Of course, absolutely.
I don't usually like to shit on our followers or shit on our listeners. But the reaction that we got was really disappointing, I have to say. Not from the podcast, but from our social media, from our Instagram. We have we're nearing 30,000. And we posted, I think, 4 things. One was the Eyes on Rafah, which, by the way, we posted it way before it became a meaningless trend. We posted something about us talking about our identity and the Nakba and everything. We posted this, and we posted the Khalas bikaffi, which means khalas, khalas, enough. And the comments, I had people that listen to the podcast reach out to me and tell me how they feel like they need to apologize. To a certain point where I stopped reading. I really, really stopped reading. And it was really sad. I'm not going to read any examples, but I'll read some of the things that I would like us to talk about just for a little bit to end this episode. But a lot of disgusting stuff that even they sometimes accuse Palestinians of doing, of celebrating death, of wishing death to us and other people, of referencing, because the fire in Rafah happened on a Jewish holiday where they do light fires, coincidentally.
Like Balmer.
Yes. And some people kind of celebrating it, that, it means something. And it was really sad. I felt really alone in that day. Until I got a few messages from other people telling me specifically that, without me saying anything about it. Just messaging me saying, the comment section turned really dark in your Instagram, and I'm really sorry for that. I feel like I need to apologize on their behalf, even though they don't represent any of us. And I don't know. It was just it was just sad. I just wanted to say that. It was just really sad.
Luckily for me, I don't know.
I know.
I don't know if our listeners would want to know this, but I do not read the comment section. Sorry, guys. It's for my mental health and sanity. Personal messages, by all means, and would love to talk, and I'm trying, because it's, again, people don't know. We had full-time jobs while we were doing this. And now we're reducing our amount of other things and other commitments so we can
But we do answer all of the questions on the Patreon.
On the
Every
Patreon.
single question on the Patreon is answered.
On the Patreon.
Yeah.
Not the 1,000+ messages on our Instagram, though.
So some of the things that briefly let's go through. A lot of people were, because we were talking about what was happening in Rafah, a lot of people are saying, why do you always blame Bibi and Israel? Like that, like obviously it was written in a lot of nasty ways, but that was the consensus of why do we always like blame Bibi and Israel? My response to that is we talked a lot about Hamas. Like شلينا عرضهم. Like we talked a shit ton about Hamas. Not every time you hear a Palestinian speak, it is to condemn Hamas. We condemned them 1,000 fucking times. We've explained how they're not representative. We've explained how the people of Gaza are protesting against them. We've talked a lot about them. They can't be in each and every post. We can't, not all the time. You know where we stand. You know where we stand. We can't every time.
Some people don't even know where we stand, and they see just one post and they immediately... But I would like to say another thing about that. Even if people don't know where we stand, there is this thing that pisses me off in, we're Israeli citizens. So, first of all, I'll criticize the country and the government to which I pay taxes to, with all due respect. And as a citizen, I'm allowed to criticize them. Who are you to tell me that I can't criticize Bibi? He's the prime minister of my state, not your state. Or even if it's your state. I thought you said it's a democracy. So if it is, I can have a different opinion. And the ironic thing is that our opinion about it is not a solely Arab or Palestinian view. It's a view that is very much shared by a lot of people in the Jewish Israeli community. But when we say it, people even more so don't approve of it because it's us who are saying it, not a Jewish Israeli. Because then there's another element or layer of trust that we're not there as Jewish. And then they're like, oh, okay, that means they're anti-us, they're with them. So that also pisses me off. And the last thing I will say about that point is I also will not hold, and for those people who call Hamas a terror organization, how can they hold Hamas and a state and a government on the same pedestal? You know what I mean? Like,
what do you mean?
Meaning, like, you're expecting from Israel things and you're like, well, Hamas didn't do it. How are you comparing the two?
I don't understand what you're saying.
Meaning, like, how can you expect things from Hamas and put Israel and compare them on the same scale? Like,
Like what? Like fake news?
Like, for instance, the fact that both sides are not pushing for a deal.
A deal,
Okay. Now, I can have criticism to the Israeli government about the deal, not to Hamas. Hamas is a terror group. How can I hold the same level of comparison or to talk about what they're doing as a state, and as a democratic state at that? If you want to be a democracy, the level of scrutiny and investigation and all of these things is higher than a terror group. Terror group doesn't give a shit about anybody's opinion.
And we've seen and we've talked about it time and time again, how Hamas gives no fucking shit.
He doesn't care
about the Palestinians.
So why would it? And no, as a state, as a government, it should care.
So where can we push?
Israeli government.
You
can push on your government. I can't push a terror group to change its ways. Like, what do you expect us to do? But Netanyahu clearly, and it's so clear how he's sabotaging the deal because he doesn't want to end the war. Simple as that.
To stay in power.
Of course.
Last thing is, which we're going to talk a lot about in our second episode, but let's touch upon it a little bit here. Two things. One is that I was waiting, this is a comment. I was waiting on this. You have shown your true colors as anti-Israel and not pro-peace. You claim to be neutral, but you are very biased. So, everything about the anti-Israel and whatever, you just summed that up about we fucking pay taxes to this country. We're allowed to, and it's a democratic country.
And we're not saying anti-Israeli things. Jewish Israelis say those things.
No, we're criticizing the government. We're criticizing the government. We're not saying that Israel doesn't have the right to exist. We're very much past that point.
Jesus.
But the fact, it's just that the fact that the Israeli public and the pro-Israel public, whether Jewish or not, has gotten used to peace being one-sided, and they call being pro-peace, being being pro-Israel is fucked up. Like, that's not how it works. You can't, like, we've neglected, even as like activists, we neglect a lot of things. Like, we forget, because we're also on one, you can't be on both sides at the same time. But we gotta practice on to make acknowledging that there's always a piece of the puzzle that we don't have. Always a piece of the puzzle that we don't have. That's why there's not enough allyship within the activist and peace building world. People tend to work alone, and suddenly all of them work on the same route, and we were all working on the same thing when there's like 1,000 different puzzle pieces that we still don't have. That's why there needs to be more Palestinian-led initiatives that work on more Palestinian things to bring more of the puzzle pieces to get the full picture.
And bridge the gap.
And the thing about being neutral and not being biased, there's no such thing as objectivity. I don't believe in objectivity. No journalist, no politician, no leader can be not biased or neutral. It's happening to us, not next to us. It is happening to us. We influence it. Like you said, our tax money, we can't not be biased.
Our emotions are affected by everything that happens. One day it will be from something that we hear happened to an Israeli person that, and then you're like, that this is heartbreaking. And then the next day about something that happens to the Palestinian people, and you feel like it's heartbreaking. We're allowed to have the two emotions, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
Like, on some things, yes, our feelings will be intensified about something horrific that happened to our people, the Palestinians in Gaza, for sure. And the same, and also something else that could happen to some Israeli, or that we can have, our emotions about things that are happening in Israel will increase as well. We are allowed to have these two separate, feelings and emotions. The only thing that they don't understand how they can happen at the same time, because the two are in conflict. Mm-hmm. Because Israel and Palestine are in conflict. If you had passion about, I don't know, it's just like, and I give the comparison to a lot of people when I do the talks of, how can you be Palestinian and Israeli at the same time? Like, can I be American and Jewish at the same time? And not be an Israeli citizen, but have ties and donate and support the state of Israel and, all of these things? They're like, yeah. I was like, okay, great. So why can't I do the same here? I can be Palestinian and Israeli at the same time. I can care for that Palestinian or, a future state, or doesn't mean I'll live in it. Doesn't mean I'm its citizen. Doesn't mean but I can have that as part of my connection. And the conflict is the one that is preventing that from,
happening and actually like ripple affecting.
Yeah, and actually, dismantle all of these limitations on identity of one versus, it's either here or here. You can't be both.
And that's exactly why we're here, to talk about these things. We're here to educate, to promote dialogue, this is why, even all these negative comments, it's not going to stop us, because we know that that's what we're fighting. This is what we came here to do, not even to stop the hate. I don't think that I'm not going to waste my time to stop the hate that's out there, but I will devote the entirety of my journey to create more positive things to focus on, and to show people that it's okay to change your mind. It's okay if you were on the hating end to say that, no, I support a better reality, even if you have a shit ton of rage, even if you're biased, because we don't expect our audience to not be biased or to be objective or to listen to us because we are objective, because we can't report on this. We can't. It's not like we're from Amsterdam or from somewhere far away and just reporting on this. It is, again, happening to us. So I want to again end by thanking our listeners, thanking the people that support us, thanking the people that subscribe to the Patreon, that are open for this nuance, that are open for the dialogue, that are helping us create more hope when we don't have any.
It's incredible, some of the comments that we see of people literally saying, just so you know, I don't agree with everything you say.
It's my favorite line.
But I'm enjoying the content. I'm learning something new. I don't have to agree with it, but I'm being exposed and getting a door into another perspective, into another narrative. And that's what we're here for. We're not inventing something from like new that, the world has never seen before. And we're just bringing a view. And all we want and all we can do is to allow room for acceptance.
Yeah.
And that can only happen by taking a first before that, which is understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding leads to acceptance. You cannot accept someone without understanding anything about it. And that's what we're here to expose and to bring a light to understanding other perspectives and views. And yeah.
And regardless of our biases, we're your partners.
Agreed.
We are your partners. We're the ones that are standing with you shoulder to shoulder, next to each other, walking towards the future. If you don't make peace with us when we disagree, you're not going to make peace with anyone else. Because we're the ones that are here. If you don't like it, then we're going to continue in the status quo. It is what it is. This is what it is. So you either work with us, or
we're screwed.
Or we're screwed.
And again, another reminder to all our listeners, I guess, at this time that really, now more than ever, we all deserve better.